This is our final office hours. Today, we're really focused on what it is that our teams need, our pool teams need in terms of digital transformation skills and competencies. And compared to some of the other work that we've done through the course of the year with Scott in this residency, it's been a great, thought-provoking, very forward-leaning sort of conversation. That is always the case when we have Scott in the room. That's terrific. But today, we're going to really focus on some pragmatic realities, right? What are the very specific skills, competencies that we need to have on our teams right now? And why do we need those things? So we're going to look at it from a much more sort of like boots on the ground kind of mentality today. So Scott, I'm going to turn it right over to you. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to talk about the resources. Just a reminder that we have been building this library of residency resources throughout the year. Every time we have an engagement with Scott, whether it's an article that he's written, a presentation he's given, a roadmap, I guess, a toolkit to road mapping, all of those materials, they remain available on our website. You can get to anything and everything at that site at any time. And always just feel free to reach out to us by email and ask us. We'll point you to whatever resource you need. And that will include this recording. Like when this recording is done, when it's been cut to just the first part, we'll put that out on the resource page as well. Okay, now Scott, it's all you.
Okay, and I would really, I'm not trying to sell it, but if you haven't gone and looked at the digital strategy road mapping tools that we put up there, I would sure urge you to go look at those. Even if you don't need them now, even if you're not in the process of doing digital strategy work, just go look at this link and look at the workbook. Look at the samples that are up there so that when your pool goes to do digital strategy road mapping, those tools are there and you haven't forgotten they're there. A lot of work went into them and I think they're really helpful. All right. One of the dimensions of digital strategy, when we were building digital strategies with some of the pools, when we were kind of practicing doing this, one of the dimensions was skills. And it's a dimension that we said, hey, every pool really needs to focus on digital skills every year. And I know that sounds basic. I do want to say, when Ann kind of introduced this and said, yeah, this one's probably a little more basic than some of the more, thought-leading things that we've talked about over the year. Hey, although this is a little more basic, it is still a huge gap with the digital maturity in pools. And so we really sat down and thought about, well, what are the 5 skills that today people really need to have in pools, right? What does the staff really need to have? And that you need to make sure as you're hiring, people are bringing these skills, or that you're helping to amplify and grow these skills. And what we're hoping you do is look at 2023 and go, all right, what can we do at our pool, regardless of size, to try to improve these 5 skills? Now, just for a bonus, we couldn't stop ourselves from doing a slide that was and 3 future skills. So after these 5 kind of current today skills, we are going to tell you about 3 that we think you should be thinking about that are coming, which again, skills that you could be experimenting with a little bit next year. All right. As always, if you have any questions, please chat them in. We're watching chat all the time. And so, we will look, and if anybody chats in any questions, we'll just answer those questions right away. And so, please do, chat things in if you have questions anytime. All right. So skill 1, the ability to quickly learn and upskill digital knowledge. Let's think about this as new knowledge, right? New areas of knowledge. And I'll give you an example. Right now there's a lot going on with different automation platforms. There's everything from kind of the low code, no code platforms to, like Microsoft Automate, to all the way up to robotic process automation, RPA. And so one of the things that everyone needs to be able to do with his staff is ability to quickly learn when something new comes down the pike, right? Or upskill your capabilities in something. as basic as this sounds, this is a bit of a mentality. I mean, it's definitely a capability and a competency, but it's also a bit of a mentality of, hey, you know what? Every year I should be getting better with my digital skills. I know for me personally, that even means Excel, just tools I use all the time. It's like, well, where can I learn something new? How can I learn how to do some new technique? So we see this as a real core kind of competency that the staff needs to have, is that they can identify when it is that there is something that they could learn that could be valuable to the pool, and then self-learn, right? Self-learn, upskill. And that's why we kind of said using technology to aid in the learning. A lot of people don't know, for example, that Microsoft at their Microsoft Office site has all kinds of free training videos. I mean, a lot of them. And if you've never gone and looked at those, you're missing an opportunity to be able to go find out how to do anything. But I guess one of my interesting examples on this, which probably a lot of us can relate to, is the ability to go to YouTube and ask YouTube to help you with anything that you want to repair. So like around the house, if you need to do any repair, you can YouTube that repair, and there will absolutely be 3 or 4 videos that show you how to do that thing. Now, that is a skill of self-learning. It's using a digital tool to be able to help you learn some new thing that you need to learn. And so I look at this as, we could call it maybe a meta skill, right? The first one that we're going to do, a meta skill, right? But the ability to quickly learn, upskill, relearn anything that you might need to do that is around digital, even digital concepts, right? The concepts that are out there that people might not understand. So when you hear about Web3, and you hear a lot about decentralization, which is, a lot of reason why people did cryptocurrency or blockchain, and they go, oh, these are decentralized. If that has no meaning for you, right? Decentralization and why that's important. This is a great example of something that you can quickly learn. You can sit down, you can read, you can sign up for a couple of blogs that talk about this topic, and then you can upskill yourself. So there you go. The first one is kind of a meta skill, is, having the skill of being able to teach yourself other digital skills quickly. All right, let's look at number 2. Number 2, we're going to go a different direction, and we're going to talk about the skill of being an impenetrable team member when it comes to cybersecurity. So it's pretty well known, I'm sure all of you know, that cybersecurity, one of the most dangerous areas of cybersecurity is always the human firewall. In other words, our people. For a lot of bad actors, whether the bad actor is a nation state, whether the bad actor are just cyber criminals, whether it's an angry ex-employee, the first and easiest technique for breaking into a pool's data or a pool's system is going to be to compromise a team member. And yes, the number one vector that we know is phishing schemes, and phishing schemes haven't gone away. They've improved to more spear phishing schemes where people will pick somebody out directly. Like, for example, I would go online, I would find Ann Gergen on LinkedIn. I'd learn everything I could about her on LinkedIn. Then I might go to Facebook, right, and learn anything I could about her in Facebook. And once I've learned who her friends are and learned what she likes, I craft an email supposedly from one of her friends, right? And I send it to her and, ask her some questions and try to get her to respond to that email. And once I know she'll respond to that email, okay, well, then I might go find out who is a coworker. And then I might send an email from that coworker to her and see if I can get her to give me some information, right, that she probably shouldn't give to me, right? Those are spear phishing attacks, where we're coming after Ann specifically. Well, skill number 2 is the ability to, no matter what the social engineering is, that you cannot be compromised as a member of the pool. Again, people might say, wow, this is a basic one. Don't we all know now that we shouldn't click on phishing schemes? Yeah, I think most people know that we have to be careful of clicking on a phishing scheme. I think what most people don't acknowledge is that today, when we do phishing testing, we still have 5 to 10% of people that click on things. not 5 to 10 people, but 5 to 10% of people. And it only takes one. Like that's all it takes to be able to compromise the pool is one. And at the same time, we got more difficult types of social engineering that are starting to happen, phishing schemes. In other words, phone calls where people are calling our team members and they're trying to, act as if there's somebody they're not. They act as if they're with the insurance company and, your insurance benefits aren't set up right. So we need you to go give us some information so we can get your benefits repaired. But the information you're going to give us is information that helps us to be able to break into the system, right? Or compromise your computer, right? So phishing calls are on the rise. We're starting to hear more and more from pools of, hey, I got this phone call and somebody acted like they were with our IT department, but I know they weren't because we don't have an IT department, right? But if you were a larger pool, that could work, right? If you actually did have an IT department. So the skill number 2 is, hey, you're not doing the minimum to understand what attack vectors are. It's you go out of your way to make sure that you are never the weak link when it comes to cybersecurity. All right, let's go to skill 3. The ability to change over to modernize software systems quickly. We're in a world where we are modernizing more and more now. In pools, it's getting to be normal to change out major pieces of the digital backbone, every 5 years, 7 years. And so we are speeding up the pace at which we are modernizing systems. What is going along with that is sometimes we're making it hard on our team members because it takes them a year or 2 to get comfortable with a system after we put it in. And then they're comfortable with it for a few years. And then boom, we're putting in some new system. I always think about that Tuckman model of team development, the forming, storming, norming, performing. And I've always thought I should come out with my own model that is about modernization, where it's the same. I got to find like 4 words that rhyme, and then I could be famous like Dr. Tuckman. But my model of forming, storming, norming, performing is going to be around what happens when we implement new systems. So it's like we install, we crawl, I don't know, I can't do it on the fly, right? But you get what I'm saying is when it comes to team development, there's this thing called the storming norming cycle, where it's like, okay, we just get the team put together and get everybody to work well together. And then the team changes and we're back into storming. Okay, the same thing is happening with modernizing systems at pools. Is a lot of times, hey, we just get a system in place, get it settled, everybody learns how to use it, and then we're replacing some other major piece of a system. So that's what we mean when I say modernization. So a key skill that we want from our team members today is the ability to adapt quickly to the new systems. Because you might know, I mean, you all have, been in pools long enough or been in organizations long enough. You've probably seen that when you put in new systems, it's like there's 2 different people who can adapt to that system fairly quickly and they like the new capabilities it brings. And then there's the people that fight it. They don't like it. What was wrong with the old system? I knew how to use that one. And those people are kind of passive aggressive usually about getting on to the new system. And so we're oftentimes having to drag them along. Well, we can't afford to really have that in our culture anymore in pools. We really need our team members, when we make the decision to modernize something, to be able to everyone row in the same direction, right? And move along fairly quickly with that modernization. That is a skill, by the way. I mean, that's not just a cultural aspect of adaptability. This is a skill that we need from team members is, okay, I understand we're going to modernize. I'm going to help with the process. I'm going to help with building the functional requirements. I'm going to help understand the process mapping. I'll help working with the vendor. Okay, now it's in and the vendor's gone. I'll help with the testing. I'll help with any, final tweaks we need to do with the system to get it to work, right? That whole process that I just talked about is what we mean here about being able to help with a good, fast changeover, modernization of systems. So there you go. There's
Hey,
skill
Scott,
3.
Yes, Scott, before you move on, like this is a good place. maybe to just even remind everybody, we said this was going to be a little bit more pragmatic and boots on the ground sort of approach, right? And to Scott's point, all of these things so far that you've addressed and are going to continue to address, these are the skills that we need in our pool teams today. And so one of the challenges, I think, for everybody on this call is to be thinking about, how would you evaluate a new interviewee, somebody we're thinking about bringing into the pool? How would you evaluate them to say, are you a self-learner? Are you motivated to go learn new skills, that first skill? Are you impenetrable? What do you know about cybersecurity and how to protect our systems against attacks? How would you test someone to say, are you really adaptable? Can you modernize? Can you bring on a new technology? Can you start using it effectively, quickly? How would you test a potential new employee in an interview process to see if they met these skills? Or how would you evaluate your current employees? How are you going to put these things into performance appraisal practices to say, we need you to get better at these things, right? And so I think that's the challenge as you're listening to Scott, thinking through these skills, is to say, how would I know if my team, a new team member, could actually do these things? How would I test it? And how would I evaluate my existing team members? Am I effectively evaluating them on these skills as well? So you've got two more, I think, to go, right, Scott? Same questions as you talked.
I think it's a great point, right? There's two elements of this. One is how do we grow these skills with our current team member? And then how do we make sure we're hiring in for these skills? And if you look just at this one, Ann, just things like the questions you ask. If you're coming from another organization and I'm interviewing you, then a great question is, have you ever been involved in the modernization of a system? Have you ever been involved in changing out a big software system? What role did you play? How did you feel about it, right? Asking questions like that, because if somebody says, yeah, boy, we did a big, core replacement at our last organization. It was horrible. It was painful. I hated it. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Okay. Red flags. So I think just sometimes the questions you ask in an interview would be helpful. All right. Skill 4. In our modern times, right? Post-pandemic, but we were already moving in this direction before the pandemic. It just sped things up. But this ability to use the new technology-based virtual meeting tools, collaboration platforms, shared environments, right? So the ability to use those tools so that you can work well with people, whether you're remote, whether they're remote, whether you're in the office. Hybrid work is not going anywhere. Now, it's going to settle, right, compared to where it is today. So we went from, it was an outlier and some organizations were doing it, some weren't, some were doing it a little bit, right, back in 2019. In 2020, we were all forced into it. What that did was everyone learned how to use these tools. And in a lot of cases, people implemented Microsoft Teams or they implemented some new collaboration platform because they didn't have one. But by 2022, everybody knows how to use, video-based platforms. Everybody knows how to use collaboration platforms. But now some people are coming back to the office, some aren't. And we have not finished writing what hybrid works looks like. We haven't finished that. It will continue to evolve. But what we know is not going to change is these tools that we have been using. We're going to have video-based tools. They're going to get better and better. They're going to offer more and more options as far as how we do video work together, eventually moving into more virtual environment or augmented reality meetings. We know that's the direction we'll go. We know the collaboration platforms will get better and better. What we don't know is, are the humans, are the people going to get better and better at using all these tools? And so it's absolutely a skill to know how to use these tools to collaborate, whether you're remote or whether you're in the office. And when I say that, hey, it's everything from, even the quality of your video or your ability to use video online. Like Ann, you're a good example, and you can comment about this if you want. I've done a lot of video with you. There's a couple things. You light very well. You always look right into the camera really well. And you clearly do those kinds of things on purpose. I know we haven't really talked about that, but I don't think that happens by accident. You're on video a lot. And so you've built the skill of how to make sure that people can see your facial expressions and body language, right? When you're online.
So I think this is one worth commenting on, not my ability to look into the camera, that's a different conversation,
That's a
but talking
skill.
about
That's a
this,
skill right
yeah,
there.
okay, talking about this skill set, Scott, like to me, and Dave commented in the chat about how important it is to be talking about building these skill expectations into our existing staff teams as well, right? How are we building performance expectations and the evaluation method and making sure that we're doing that? This one in particular, I think too, there are actually two different skills here, or two different important considerations depending on your pool and your pool size and structure. One is, are you hiring people who can work in this, in the environment that they are likely to have to work in? Maybe it's remote, maybe it's hybrid. Can they interact effectively with team members who are sitting next to them in a cubicle, but who also maybe are virtual, et cetera. So one is the, hiring all staffing skills that they can do this. Two is thinking specifically about your supervisors and managers, because it does take a different set of skills to be able to manage a hybrid team. You have to do things differently. You have to acknowledge people differently. You have to share information differently. You have to perform differently as a manager, as a supervisor, as a leader, if you're leading a team who can effectively manage and work in this altogether different environment. Even thinking about things like doing member visits. We're doing more member visits virtually. Well, you have to coach people. You have to coach your team members differently if they're going to be performing a virtual presentation versus an in-person presentation. So I see this as sort of a, two layers or two strata of skills. One is for everybody, and one is for the leaders who can lead teams in this way.
Yeah, good point. In our discussion about, Anne, when you brought up how do we make sure we're hiring people with these skills? I have a friend in HR, a pretty big organization. They do all their initial interviews over Zoom. And it doesn't matter if the person lives, half a mile down the street from their building. They do all their first interviews on Zoom. And if you can't Zoom effectively and come across effectively, it doesn't matter what your job is, right? What level of job, they won't take you to a second interview. And I found that interesting because, they had people that said everything from, well, I don't have Zoom. I don't know how to load Zoom on my computer. I mean, they would have people that would say things like that and they would go, okay, well, you're out. I mean, you're just out. So
I think actually, Scott, this skill in particular, like this is a big one to unpack in today's environment, and to really be thinking about, your collaboration tools along those same lines. If you're doing a writing exercise, do people know how to use a shared document? Can they do that? Can they work effectively that way? There's a ton of really specific skills embedded within this to be thinking about.
Yeah. Have you ever built a shared document? Have you ever put together a shared PowerPoint with somebody in real time, right? I mean, there's interesting questions you could ask that if the answers are all no, 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 you better hope this person has an ability to learn. All right, let's go to the last of the today skills that you have to have. This is all about the baseline technology tool skills. And so we need people who will be willing to self-learn and grow their skills on the baseline office tools. And let's just say, when I say baseline office tools in a pool, Microsoft Word or whatever word processor you use, if you use Google or whatever you use, a spreadsheet, a presentation platform, email, document storage, how you store documents and storing documents in the right way. I mean, one of the problems we're having more and more now is people who are creating intellectual property, but they don't store it in the right place in the right way, or they keep it on their computer and they don't upload it where other people can access it, or they upload it and don't put it in the right place. I mean, as simple as document storage is, there's a big difference between somebody who really knows how to do it and somebody who doesn't do it. And even at our firm, we find the same thing, that sometimes it's hard to get everybody to upload things they create or do and get it into the right place. And in a pool, basic skills like understanding enrollment and the role technology plays in enrollment or in claims, right? These are baseline office technology skills. And I think our point here is one of the competencies we have to look for are people who care about growing their baseline capabilities every year with these skills. Like if you're not that good at Excel, but you know how to open one, you can look at one, you could add a column and that's about the max you can do. It's having the competency to go, on your own out to the Microsoft site and learn 5, 6 more things you could do, or getting a more sophisticated spreadsheet and looking at how it was built so that you know how to do that as well. And so again, as much as this sounds basic, we have these, again, these baseline tools that almost everybody knows how to at least open them and do something, but they, in a lot of cases, aren't using 5% of the power of the capabilities of these tools. And then they go, well, that's enough. Like, that's all I need to know. And we need to get team members to go further than that. And then since, we keep talking about it, this one's a little easier when you are hiring people, because you can test for this. You can ask questions, you can give people homework or challenges to do and have them come back and show you what they did so that you understand it, instead of just saying, hey, do you know how to build spreadsheets? Yes. Everyone's going to say yes to that, of course. But it's like, okay, we want you to build a spreadsheet that's got this and this in it. It calculates these things. It's formatted this way. Build us a sample and bring it back in our next interview and show us the sample you built. That's a whole different level of verifying people when you bring them in to hire them. So I don't know. Ann, do you think that's being harsh? You think it's harsh for me to say, hey, we should give people homework and make them bring it in?
No way. I think it's spot on, especially in that interview. I mean, this, to a certain degree, right? We're really challenging what are the interview standards, and you're evaluating candidates for the role that they're going to play, but you also have to evaluate them for the way they're going to do their work. Scott, Jill chimed in on chat to say that the organization has an accountability and a responsibility here as well, and it is to provide good documentation, right? So that everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, where they're supposed to be placing files, how they're supposed to be performing. And I think that comes right back to that question of what are you doing with your existing employee group? It's not just about the new hires, it's about the existing folks as well, and making sure that there's clear direction and that they have some clear performance expectations. We all have it. We all have that one person. I love your example of the shared folders, because everybody can relate to that. The person who doesn't, put things where they're supposed to. And as silly as it sounds, that's a performance issue.
It's a serious issue. We had and I don't say this to darken our mood or anything, but we had one of our team members who passed away a couple of weeks ago. And I mean, first of all, once we got over the initial personal shock of him passing away, that was the next conversation was, how do we get his laptop? Because one of the things we'd been talking about was, he had some things on his laptop that we knew he was going to upload, and he didn't upload them. And that sounds like a small thing, of people being good at document storage, right up until it's not a small thing anymore. All right. So the future skills, let me just go over those with you real quick, because we needed to. We just wanted to say, hey, what are some things you should be looking at a pool over the next year or two? New skills and competencies that we're going to want. So the first one is, focused on Microsoft Power BI and Power Automate. Or if you're not a Microsoft shop, then business intelligence or automation tools that are low code, no code tools. So the ability to use, we tend to call citizens, right? But the business side, not IT people, but the business side in the pool, them being able to do low code, no code tools on their own without help from IT. Microsoft is doing a good job with Power BI and Power Automate of building them in, just like they did Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Their new model is now adding these two tools, the ability to use Power BI for data analytics and visualization, and then Power Automate to do easy automations that can be done without the IT department, helping a whole lot. So we believe this is a future skill that's coming, is we can't just look at those 3 skills anymore, right? Of the basic spreadsheet and word processor and presentation, right? For the future, these will be the next 2 that we really want team members to come into the pool already knowing how to do. But for our current team members, there's going to take some training to do this. And the good news is Whether you're doing these through Microsoft, through Google, through anybody else, these new tools are fairly low cost, and there's a lot of free training available for those. But we would sure look for you to have your pool team members come up to speed on these tools. All right, the second one, the ability, again, to program solutions using low code, no code. And I put program in quotes because we don't have a different word for what it is when you use low code or no code. And the reason it's even called low code or no code is you don't have to write a lot of software code to get the computer to do something custom for you. You can use plain language commands. You can drag and drop things in a way to create a workflow or to create an automation. Well, definitely this is where platforms are moving. Again, it doesn't matter whose platform you're on. I mean, even a lot of the core platforms in a pool, for handling enrollment or handling claims or anything like that, are starting to have low code or no code workflows built into them so that people can automate something on their own. And so we really believe this is, again, a skill that's not going to be an outlier in the future. This will be something that we want most of our people to be able to do is, hey, instead of you taking data by hand, putting it into a spreadsheet, manipulating it by hand, sending it out by hand, that you use a low code or a no code workflow system to just automate all of that. You build it, but instead of building it and then you have to touch it all the time, you build it and you automate it. So that's the second one. Then this last future skill, probably the one that I think is the coolest right now, because I am absolutely enjoying it, is the ability to co-work with AIs. And what I mean by that is there's starting to be AI engines out there that will do things for you. The one that's been hot the last 2 months is generative AI, right? What's called generative AI. And with generative AI, the AI can create artwork for you. It could write music. It can write content. And so those 3 generative AI engines we're seeing from an organization called OpenAI, but now Google has a platform, same kind of generative engines. I've been playing with 3 of the major art generative AIs, Diffusion, Midjourney, and DALL-E 2, if you've read about those. And I've gotten good enough now that, I create a lot of the art for my slides because I don't need to go get clip art anymore. I can just talk to the AI, tell it what I'm looking for. I can say, hey, I'm looking for a businesswoman in the future, sitting at her desk, working with a tablet, and sitting next to a robot. I can put in those prompts, and then that exact piece of art comes out. Then I can say, well, I want it to be like Greg Rutkowski painted it, or I want it to be like Rembrandt would paint it. And then it takes that graphic and changes it into that style. Like, this is what I mean about co-working with AIs. Somebody mentioned to me this morning, they said, wow, I read an article, and if you were in the clip art business, or if you were in the, the art business where like Getty Pictures, where you have a license to go download art, they're going to get hammered by this. And it's absolutely true, because now we have generative AIs that will create any graphic you want on command. So that is going to be a skill. I can tell you, it takes a lot of knowledge to just learn the prompts of everything that I can ask the AI to do when I'm trying to create a graphic, or when I'm writing content and I want the AI to help me write a blog. And I have to know how to put in the topic. I have to know how to tell it what style I'm looking for, right? To get it to actually generate a lot of copy. And then I can figure out if I like that copy or not. So there you go. That's a third skill. Co-working with AIs, especially the new generative AI engines.
Scott, it strikes me as I was listening to you talk through those 3 things. Interestingly, I mean, those are skills, right? The skill of investing in and understanding automation, the low code, no code, the ability to use AI. Those are technical skills that we need to be looking for. But it also speaks a little bit more also to, again, a mindset of people who aren't afraid to write themselves out of the traditional job that they've been doing, right? So if you think about it, if you're asking me, if you're inviting me in to do the job as it has historically been done, and at the same time asking me to know about and bring in some automation that would allow me to do that job more effectively, more efficiently, right? You're asking me to be able to write myself out of the job you've hired me for. And that goes for new employees and existing employees. And that's a little bit more of a mindset. It also, again, maybe speaks to the mindset of the pool itself. You know, are you able and willing, and do you operate in an environment where you can flex an employee's skill set so that if they automate themselves out of the underwriting job that they're doing, are you prepared to move them into a loss control role or a risk management role? Are you prepared to move them into a finance role? So it's a little bit of, you know, you're looking for a technical skill set, you're looking for a certain kind of mindset of people who are working with the pool, but you're also thinking about how the pool itself is going to adapt its work environment and its work processes as well.
Yeah, again, in my fun comment about there's two kinds of people in the world, and I can say that about all kinds of things. When it comes to automation, there's like two kinds of team members in the world. The team member that loves to automate because they're making improvements, and then the teammate that says, I don't want to automate, you know, that'll take away 25% of my job, right? And what we need is that first one. You know, we do need to create a comfortable area, a comfortable zone for our team members that, hey, as you learn more of these low code, no code capabilities, as you can automate things and you automate away 40% of your job, we have something better for you. I mean, if we can't make that a reality, then it's asking a lot, you know, for people to just automate away chunks of their job and there's no benefit. You know, we need them to see that, hey, if you automate away this piece that's highly repeatable, we have something better for you over here, even if it's not changing you to a different department, even if it's your department, but now you get to work with members a lot more, use your human skills, you know. So I think it's a good point. As we require people to add more technology skills and they're using some of those to alter their jobs, you know, we have to be sensitive to making them feel like there's a good future. There's a benefit in that.